Jesse Pinkman was supposed to die at the end of the first season. Walter White was meant to become a maniac. It sounds unreal, but that's how the TV series Breaking Bad was initially conceived. Today, I will tell you more about this and why the first season had only 7 episodes instead of the originally planned 9, and what was supposed to happen in them. TV series Breaking Bad is a cult classic. The story of a high school chemistry teacher who became a criminal kingpin is a truly masterpiece. At the time when TV shows were mostly family-friendly, Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad, managed to create a masterpiece that continues to be popular even a decade after its ending. Many viewers at the time were shocked by the fact that this TV show is not afraid to touch and show extremely tough topics. Walter White, from a nice guy by the end of the series, turns literally into a ruthless monster and does terrible things. However, did you know that Vince Gilligan originally planned to take the show in a darker direction, almost turning it into a horror story? The level of intensity could have been much higher from the very first season. Now, let me share the details. I'll tell you right away that I compiled this information from various podcasts and interviews of the show's creators, which I put together and filled in the gaps with my own vision and interpretation of the creators' words about how it could have been. In any case, we will never see or know 100% what the show could have been, but we have enough information to know and assume what the end of the first season should have been if the creators had developed their original idea. And it's just brutal. Jesse was supposed to die at the end of the first season.
And you said that you had originally intended to kill off a character in episode 9, but you only got to episode 7.
Yes.
Who were you going to kill off?
I was going to kill off this gentleman right here.
Thank God for the rice. Thank you, Russ.
In 2007 and 2008 there was a writer's strike in the United States, which led to the fact that the 8th and 9th episodes of the first season simply do not exist, and there are only 7 episodes. Originally, Jesse was supposed to be killed by a certain drug dealer.
And this guy's a really tough, badass dude. This is a character we never had. There's versions of this character in Gustavo Fring and in Tuco Salamanca and even in Crazy 8. We never completely had this character realized.
A ruthless drug dealer, and the character development ideas for him were later used by Vince Gilligan to create characters like Tuco, Gustavo Fring and Crazy 8. To give you an example so that I can visualize this idea, we will imagine that this drug dealer was Tuco, who is one of the most violent and insane characters of this show. It is Tuco who brutally kills his own partner in the show for saying the wrong thing. In this way he could easily kill Jesse too.
That Jesse gets killed. Walt is so filled with rage at the drug kingpin, drug dealer who kills Jesse, that he's out for revenge.
During one of the deals, Tuco kills Jesse, and this really affects Walter. Walter becomes furious and wants revenge very badly, and somehow puts Tuco to sleep and drags him down to the basement, probably the basement of his house. It's already creepy, isn't it? Considering that this script concept was developed after the pilot episode was written, but before the show was even filmed or even written all the episodes, we can assume that the development of Walter keeping Tuco in the basement was the basis for the storyline about Walter bringing a character named Crazy 8 into the basement of Jesse's house, especially considering that Vince Gilligan mentions that parts of this drug dealer's character formed the basis for Crazy 8. Personally, I believe that the basement detail from this non-existent character might have transferred to Crazy 8's character, while most of the other aspects were incorporated into Tuco's character. And if in the version of the series that we know, Walter hesitated, struggled, and made deals with his conscience, and even considered letting Crazy 8 go, in the original concept, everything was much more terrifying. So, let's return to the original idea and see what was there. Walter ties up Tuco in the basement and places a gun at the other end of the room, pointing it at Tuco. Walter attaches a rope to the gun's trigger, which Tuco holds, and Tuco can end his life at any moment by pulling that rope. And this is only the beginning, although it already sounds like something that would completely change the series. In the version of the series that exists, Walter's transformation from a nice guy and chemistry teacher to a ruthless criminal kingpin happens slow and natural. It takes 5 seasons. In this concept, it seems to me that Walter's transformation in the original script happens too fast, almost within a single season, making it difficult for the audience to believe in it. Moreover, in this version of the script, Walter doesn't become a brutal criminal kingpin, but a cruel and insane maniac. Because, according to the concept, Walter tortures Tuco by cutting off his limbs. In this multiverse, he is some sort of analog to John Kramer from Saw, just a crazy maniac who tortures his victims. Every day for weeks, Walter in this version of the script would go down to the basement at a certain time and torture Tuco, until he decides to pull the rope and end his suffering. But Tuco doesn't do that because in this case he will lose. And one day, Walter Jr., Walter White's son, should have gone down to the basement and discovered this surprise from his dad. That's why I assume Walter was keeping Tuco in the basement of his own house. However, it's a bit strange because his family should have noticed Tuco much earlier in that case. But these are just details, and I believe that if this script had actually made it to full writing, this point would have been clarified and explained.
Walter Jr. was gonna somehow stumble into this place and come downstairs and find this, from his mind, from his point of view, this poor guy with like no legs. And Walter Jr., being a sweet, character, was gonna like lean in and try to help him, put some water, a bottle of water to his lips. Oh my God, I'm calling the police.
From Walter Jr.'s perspective, this scene looks like that. He goes down to the basement of his house and finds a tortured man who has gone through terrible torment. Walter Jr. immediately gives Tuco some water and wants to call the police. Barely alive and suffering, Tuco barely opens his eyes and sees Walter Jr., somehow realizing that he is the son of his tormentor, and at that moment, he decides to pull the rope that Walter left for him, and the gun goes off, killing both Walter Jr. and Tuco. Tuco ends his suffering and takes revenge on his tormentor by killing his son, and all this happens with a single shot. What would have happened in the series next remains a matter of speculation, but I am almost certain that the tone of the series would have changed. I think you didn't expect this. I was shocked when I heard how the series was initially supposed to be. It's difficult to imagine what would have happened in the following seasons. Perhaps Walter would have become a criminal boss and a maniac. We can never know for sure. The only thing certain is that everything in the series would have been completely different, and we don't know if the show would have become as iconic in that case. Maybe it would still have been an excellent series, because talented people were behind its creation. But in my opinion, it would definitely have been overshadowed by what we got now. As I already mentioned, Walter's transformation from a struggling high school teacher to a remorseless maniac would have been too fast and difficult for the audience to believe and connect with such a character. Moreover, I think that with this concept, the show might have had fewer viewers since not everyone would have been receptive to such a dark and intense format. And then, due to low ratings, the show could have been cancelled much earlier. Walter still becomes an extremely ruthless character by the end of the series that we have now, but his transformation is believable and he still has doubts about his actions, and he doesn't cut off anyone's hands and feet in the series. I was freaking out when I found out what he was supposed to be, and how well it turned out that Aaron Paul, who played Jesse Pinkman, impressed the show's creators with his acting, and due to the strike, episodes 8 and 9 were not completed. As a result, the creators decided to keep Jesse's character, and we got one of the greatest duos in the history of television, Walter White and Jesse Pinkman, in one of the best series ever made, Breaking Bad. What do you think the series would have turned out like if this idea had been realized? Would you like to see such a turn of events? Be sure to write your thought about it in the comments and also press like and sub buttons. Thank you.